Hi, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Steven. Welcome to Ivy Bound LA.
This is an education and parenting-based podcast and YouTube channel that we'll be sharing conventional and not so conventional methods in guiding children to an Ivy League education.
Today we'll be talking about who we are. Please like and subscribe, hit that bell, and let's get right to it.
So I'm Michelle, like I said, and I grew up in Orange County, California. I hold a Bachelor of Science degree in biology and a minor in chemistry, and I'm currently a chemistry and biomedical teacher at a private high school. So when I was growing up, I'm one of four. My parents worked very hard to provide an education for us in the city that we lived in with really good schools. And they struggled at times to do that, like many families do. When it was time for me, when it got closer to me going to college, I knew my parents, they were paying for my sister and my brother, and I knew the money wouldn't quite match up. So I had been working really hard in softball to earn a scholarship, and that paid for my education. So with our sons, and we'll talk about that later, I had no idea how to do the process of like applying to colleges and that sort of stuff. So that's kind of my how I grew up, and our journey for my family all started from us coming from New York and migrating to California.
Mine was a little different. I'm originally from South America. Right on top of Brazil is an area called Guyana, a country called Guyana, I should say. Beautiful country, picturesque. But my family migrated from Guyana to Brooklyn, New York, way back in the 70s, 1975 to be exact. Well, my dad went ahead of us 1 year and then sent for the family to then, we actually was established back then what we called a middle class family. None of us went to college, and myself included. We grew up in Brooklyn, New York, went to Erasmus Hall High School where I studied music for all things. It was a music academy type high school environment where it was amazing. Shaggy went there my year. So after high school, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, which brought me to California. In California, where I was stationed, I did music still. I was in a big gospel R&B group called Brent Jones and the TP Mob. I did the reggae for the group, being from Guyana, of course. And fast forward 15 years where we met, and at the circus actually, yeah. We first saw each other. And so we actually dated a few years and then got married, and then we had our sons. Parenting wise, for me, my parenting style came from a South American environment, so it was very different. So I didn't know how to get my kids to college because none of us went to college, and no one in my family went to college at that time. So for me, it was all brand new territory, but we actually, we did it, and we made a goal, a plan for ourselves. We wanted for our kids, and we made it, we accomplished that.
Yeah, we didn't always get it right.
Never didn't, we didn't have a roadmap.
But that kind of leads us to why we even had the blueprint to even know what we were doing. Because
funny story.
Yeah, there isn't a blueprint. I mean, you can read the books, but the application and hearing a real life story is, it's more tangible. So that kind of leads to my story of when I was sitting in the mechanic shop and a lady walked in, she sat down, she was waiting for her car to be fixed, and you exchange niceties like, how old are your children, this and that. And she said that she had 3 children and they were all 3 in Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. And I was just blown away. And I said, wow, how did you do that? And I said, that's amazing. And she said, she's like, how old are your sons? And I said, at that time they were in 3rd grade. So she's like, you still have time for them to do well in the SAT and all that. And I said, who thinks of the SAT in 3rd grade? She said, we do. And she asked me a question that it puzzled me, but it was very thought-provoking. She said, okay, so let me ask you, what do you do on the weekend? I said, well, we go hiking, my sons play sports, they do all of this. And she says, well, that's different. First of all, what we do is we tie academics. She said, if you go on the weekends, who do you see at the library? She said, yeah, you see people of color, but she's like, no disrespect, I don't see people that look like you there with their children. And I was like, wow. And I wasn't offended. It was her observation. So she said, I said, well, how did you get your children, 3 children, into Ivy League? And she said, do you have time? I said, sure. And I said, can I write this down? And she said, sure. And so she told me the blueprint that led to all 3 of her children going to an Ivy League. And that blueprint we still have today, and that's what we've been using to get our sons into and follow that blueprint successfully.
And that was a premise of us doing this, is to let you know that it's attainable. You know, you can actually make it happen if you first change your mindset. You know, like I said, it wasn't easy. But one of the things that we did was we were able to be mentored, and we were very coachable in the sense of we listened and applied. It was almost as simple as that, even though it's a very difficult thing to do because you have all these distractions in the world going on around you. But one of the things we were able to do was take it in and say, we want that for our kids. So we applied it, you know. So the big thing is being coachable. One of the big things that was a big thing for her was eating dinner as a family. So why was eating dinner as a family so important to you?
Well, so when you look at how you want to raise children, it's also something that you look at how you were raised, and some things you choose to replicate and some things you didn't. But why we chose it was a little bit different. My mom, it was tradition, my mom and my dad, but for us, it was because the conversations that would happen at the table were part of that blueprint that led them to the correct mindset that you were talking about. And so one of the things that we would ask them is, how do you want to live?
Absolutely. How critical is that? Because you think about it, people in our society always ask the wrong questions. You know, if you get the right question, then you can have, what you want to have happen is some eyebrows get to raising and you start thinking about things deeper than the surface answers you might get. You know, you may ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? He's a kid. What does he know what he wants to be when he grows up?
You remember what Isaiah said?
Yeah.
Said he wanted to be an apple picker.
Apple picker.
Yes.
I was like, over my dead body, buddy.
He was in kindergarten, and I remember Steve said, well, you're going to be broke. I know, Daddy.
You know, but one of the things that we actually implemented in our family, and this came from a millionaire mentor we had way back in the day. We had exposure to some very successful people in our life, in our walk in this journey, and we asked those questions. And some of the things they asked their kids was, how do you want to live when you grow up? Who knows what do you want to be when you grow up? You don't even know where to begin. You know, I'm a network engineer, and I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grow up. This network engineering position wasn't even around when I was growing up. To me, or was I even exposed to anything that even tell me I was interested in that? But it kind of fell on me. That's what I am today, and I made a very nice living with that because I accidentally did what worked. So fast forward, how do you want to live? When you talk about how do you want to live, chasing a lifestyle, we put a dollar figure and associated with a specific lifestyle they were chasing. So that mindset again is a key thing. Pursue how do you want to live, and then figure out where your strengths are and how you achieve that.
Yeah, so it was like questions that we would ask them about tied into how you want to live was, do you like the house that mommy and daddy is living in? Do you want that type of house? What kind of car do you want to drive? And, you know, looking at cars, we'd look at cars, and in California, we're blessed to see all kind of, or not blessed, I don't know how you look at it, but I think it's a blessing to see, you know, Bugattis and Lamborghinis, and Steve and I both love cars, so to see Ferraris and say to our sons, okay, this is how much that costs, you know? They knew what we drove. It definitely wasn't a Ferrari or a Bugatti.
Or Lamborghini, which we did see yesterday on the freeway.
Yeah, so, yeah, right? So they knew, and we would tell them how much those things cost. And we would dream build with them about, and we're going to do another episode on mindset. But one of the things is we did ask them, okay, how do you want to live? What kind of house? And we would look at those houses.
Yeah. And we would go to car shows and see those cars.
Yes.
You know, and we actually I have pictures of them sitting in cars in the car shows. So to segue from that, we would actually have things of the mindset we're talking about being results driven, not process oriented. You want the results, you want that win. Now the process sucks at times. You know, you talk to an athlete, which Michelle was an athlete in college. Did you enjoy the training?
No, of
but you
course
wanted
not.
to win.
You're right.
You know, you want the results of the victory. So the process of training and working out and all the different aspects of becoming that number one athlete sucks. You know what I mean? So, but you want that, you want the actual win. So those are the kind of stuff we would have out in our dining room conversations about being results driven and how important that is.
Yeah, and we talked about careers that what we knew that we started to learn their strengths, and that it was towards math and science, and so we directed them in careers that were related to that could afford them the lifestyle that they wanted, and so that's where they ended up.
Focusing on
Focusing on science and majoring in science at their university where they are. So we asked them what careers did they think would lead to the lifestyle that they wanted. And so we directed them, knowing that they had strengths in math and science, to those careers. And that led them to major in science at Brown University.
So we talked about how do we determine their strengths. It's one of the things that is important to understand, because you got to figure out what your child's strengths are. Michelle would take them. We would take them to museums all throughout LA. Even when we traveled back east to visit family, we'll go to museums in Washington D.C. and Smithsonian's and all the different awesome museums, and we figured out that they gravitated to the science areas. At one point, they wanted to be a forensic pathologist because they love the CSI aspect of science, the creativity of it, the hunt, to figuring out why this person, why this happened to this particular person intrigued them. So we were being aware of the things they liked and things that drew them. They weren't freaked out about seeing those different type of exhibits at the Science Museum.
Yeah.
Like what Body Magic thing was called?
Oh, Body World.
Body World.
Yeah. So yeah, they weren't turned off from seeing anything scientific, and I did science experiments with them at home. Of course, because I have a science background, but still, even if you don't, and your child is gravitating towards that, you're gonna have to figure it out. I mean, there's so many books out there that you can, figure out really cheap science experiments and do that. And that's what I was willing to do, even if I didn't have a background in science.
Yeah. And one of the things that, we have to make learning fun.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you did to make it fun for them?
Yeah, so I remember one time we went to a park in Orange County, and it happened to be a park that we call the dinosaur park fondly, because there's actually fossils they found there of dinosaurs. So we talked about that and what era that dinosaurs were in. So everything tied back into their interest, but I made it fun. It was like, okay, let's go find the fossils, and so everything was academic related, but also fun. We challenged them with books that they would read, and we
always kept them reading.
Yeah, always reading and challenging them and providing them with, let's go to Barnes and Noble and let's look at books, or let's go to the library and let's look at books. And so it became something fun, and it was one of the things we did in the summertime. They knew that every week we would go to the library.
And Michelle mentioned the summertime. Well, Michelle was great. She's a teacher, so we were able to leverage the fact that she's a great teacher and front load them with math prior to them going to the next grade. For instance, in fourth grade, she would get the fourth grade book the summer before fourth grade, and then work with them for about an hour a day or something like that during the summer. It wasn't anything obtrusive, so the boys didn't feel like they were missing out on anything, because it was fun. And they did it, and I think we set those habits early, so they didn't really feel like they were missing out on anything. They just saw that's something we just did. Just like you eat breakfast in the morning, they did an hour day of homeschool in the summer month, preloading the next year's math class. So when they got to the math class, it was a review. It wasn't like something brand new to them. So it was amazing, and that stuff, we did that intentionally. We had an intentional mindset with their educational goals. Back then, it was our educational goals for them, and until it became their educational goals to work hard and get to the Ivy League of their choice. So what are some of the things, the other kind of weekend, summer stuff they did for academics?
So I was very intentional about planning out the whole summer. So I knew what we were doing on any given day, and to add to what Steve was saying, they knew, and it was setting study habits that I didn't even directly know that I was setting that for them, but we would have breakfast. They would do their lesson, and then we would do something fun. And now, yes, I had summers off, but even if you don't have summers off and your child is somewhere else, you can still put that in place in the evening when you get home from work to do a lesson with them. The other things we did was I also let them decide some of the activities that they wanted to do over the summer. So if that was swimming or other things besides just academic. And whatever they were interested in, I was interested in. And so we'll talk about that in another episode. That's mindset. But that was also helped with the summer of tying in academics because they liked swimming. We were swimming all the time. So
as we're talking about academics, what are some of the other academic things you did, like with with the grandma and family and helps and that kind of stuff?
I mean, one thing that was really pivotal to them being successful in not only writing but in math and history was my mom would do what we fondly called Nana school. And so I would bring my sons over on Saturday to her, Nana Saturday school, and she would do history lessons with them. They would write, they would journal, she would do math with them. And that led to their confidence in academics. And that was such a key thing because every weekend they knew they were going to Nana's house. And that's what they would do at Nana's house. And then after that, Nana would do a craft with them, or Nana would do a science experiment. So it was letting other people get involved. And my mom and my dad were a big part of that. Absolutely.
It was amazing to see the dynamics of grandma and grandpa helping the grandkids and participating in the grandkids' learning. It was beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And if you have access to the grandparents, take advantage of that. Have them spend some time with them, and you can actually. I'm pretty sure grandparents would love to spend those days reading with the kids and those type of things. So that helps in building that self-confidence and then getting the kids reading. The biggest thing is reading. You gotta have your kids reading all the time, and make it fun for them. Education should be fun and exploring through books and different mediums like museums and all the different things. But outside of the academic approach, Michelle touched on a little bit about having fun and doing different things like swimming and that kind of stuff. So that was some of the big things. What are some of the other things you did with them to so they can decompress and enjoy their childhood years?
Yeah, so we did, you're talking about the sports, right? We did soccer, we did fencing, we did karate. They were at science camps, and that's one of the things we'll talk about in finances. How do we afford all this? And that's coming. That's another episode. But we did, I did little pee-wee soccer, little pee-wee basketball. We did Little League. I even coached Little League to try to get them. I really wanted them to be baseball players. So I even coached their Little League team, and still no go with that. But yeah, so every sport, they were on a swim team, and it was really important for them to be, I wanted them to be proficient swimmers, so swim lessons every summer. What else did we do?
A lot of beach outings.
Yeah, we did a lot of beach
And what
outings.
was that beach that had all the different?
We called it Tom's. I thought you were talking about Tom Sawyer.
Don't talk about that.
So we went. There's a place where they could build rafts.
Oh.
So they built rafts, and they would go in a lake, and they would build, like a tree house. So we did that. We would go on nature hikes. He's not really a big nature hike person, but I would take him on nature hikes. I was a Marine,
man. I'm not going to the hikes.
Okay. And then we would do the Saturday free family ones where you discover all the nature, or the nighttime ones, and all that's free. You just have to look it up.
Yeah, she was a big proponent of, was it OC Weekly?
Yeah, so OC Weekly, I think it's online now, but they used to have a magazine. I'm dating myself there. But I would go pick up the magazine, and that's how I would plan out our summer. When they were younger, when they were babies, I would find story times. But when I met the lady at the mechanic shop, I became more intentional with making sure that it aligned with academic goals too.
Yeah.
That we had.
Sure. So yeah, those are some of the things that was great, and it's some of the things that, I think in these days you could probably even Google free things to do with kids.
Yeah, you can.
In your city, if you don't have an OC Weekly. That was like a free publication that offered different avenues of different things that kids can get into. OC Weekly would have great stuff like everyday things.
So you could plan out your whole summer based
Yeah.
upon OC Weekly because it had a calendar. So you could just align your calendar with that, and they would have like book fairs and like science fairs and free science camps and
YMCA access for like minor basketball leagues.
Yeah.
And the kids,
Yep.
when they were toddler leagues and playing basketball, it's
yeah,
hilarious.
yeah. So and OC Weekly specialized in finding free stuff. So that's where I started. When I built our summer schedule, our summer calendar, it was starting with free stuff, and I challenged them to even to see how much money we could spend or not spend in a week, and that way I could spend more money on like camps that cost money. So we did as many free things as we could, like dollar movie theaters and you know, watching movies outside and things that we went to a beach and they would have a movie and it was really cheap and we would sit outside and watch an old movie.
And all they would charge is parking. You had to pay to
Yeah.
get into the parking lot, which would be a couple of dollars per car, and they had a free movie. It could be like the Goonies or something.
Yeah, but the point was we spent a lot of time with them. So knowing our sons, we know our sons very well through each stage because we spent time getting to know them and what they like through each stage. So that's kind of the point of it, but it's also making sure that we always kept their academic goals and what we had in mind for them at the forefront of everything that we did. So we're really excited to share the journey that took Miles and Isaiah to Ivy League, and we just want to really thank you for joining us today, and we just want to continue sharing tips and what we did for our sons to earn an Ivy League education.
With that said, please join us next week. We'll be talking about private versus public schools. And if you would like to reach us, feel free to hit us on all social media platforms at IvyBoundLA. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. Lastly, please hit the like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you won't miss out. Remember, if you stay ready, then you don't have to get ready.
And the path is here and the opportunity is at your fingertips. All you have to do is grab it.
Bye.
See you next week.